Hello everyone, I'm Alfian and today we are going to solve the HackerRank on the data structure section called the compare to linked list. And for this particular challenge, we are given the pointer to the head nodes of the linked list. Compare the data in the nodes of the linked list to check if they are equal. If all data attributes are equal and the lists are the same length, return 1, otherwise return 0. But for this challenge, since we are using Java 7, if you want to use something else other than Java 7, you can go ahead. I encourage you to do so. And the function itself, we have this static boolean function called the compare list that takes two parameters, which is the head1 and the head2, and they are both of the data type of the singly linked list node. And this function itself, it is expecting a boolean value instead of just return 1 or return 0, and that's so we can simply return true if it's 1, then we can simply return false if it's 0. So we have the example of head1 or linked list 1 that consists of 1, 2, 3 and null, and the linked list 2 node chain we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and null, and the two lists have equal data attributes for the first three nodes, which is 1, 2 and 3. Linked list 2 is longer though, so the lists are not equal, which is not identical, so it will be return 0 or returning false. And for this function description, complete to compare list function in the editor below, we have two parameters that already described. Both are single linked list node data type, the reference to the head of the list, and returning, I assume it is not integer, it is boolean value, since the function itself is expecting a boolean value, either true or false. If it's an integer, then the static will be in the form of number or integer instead of boolean. So for the input format, we have the contents an integer t, the number of test cases. Each of the test cases has following format. The first line contains an integer n, the number of nodes in the first linked list, and each of the next n lines contains an integer, each a value for a data attribute, and the next line contains an integer m, the number of nodes in the second linked list. Each of the next m lines contains an integer, each a value for a data attribute. Okay, so without further ado, let's solve this out. Since we are expecting if it is not identical, we should returning false. If it is identical, then we should returning true. That way we can declare a linked list traversal using the both pointer of the head1 and head2, and that acts as a gateway to check if after we traverse this one, checking either if either one of the linked lists are null or not. And not just that, we need to also check for the data inside the current nodes that we are going to traverse currently. Since this one is not null, then of course we need to check the data inside every linked list 1 and then it is 2. If it's the same of the data property, then of course we continue the while loop to iterate the next one and checking if it is null or the data contains inside the node it is not equal between one and another. If it is null, then of course we are returning false immediately. If it is past all of the tests from the while loop iteration, then of course we are returning true. So to do that, we can simply first declare our pointer called the singly linked list node that traverse over the head1 called the current node 1, and this one acts a pointer. Another one, which is the singly linked list node called the current node 2. We have the head2 as our variable of the current node 2 that we need to traverse. Then for the next one, we need to check while using the while loop, check if the current node 1, if you remember about how we going to traverse over the linked list, then of course we are using the current node 1 to check if it's not null, and using another expression called the OR operator check if the current node 2 is also not null. So the while loop will check if as long as the current node 1 is not null or the current node 2 is not null. Either one is true, then the while loop will still running. And after that, we need to check if inside the while loop, we need to check if the current, either the current node 1 is equals to null or the current node 2 is equals to null. If it is null or non-existent, like this one from the fourth iteration, since the linked list 1 has the value of null, which is there is nothing inside this chain, which is the end of the chain and no nodes whatsoever, and we have 4, we compare against the 4 with null, then of course we are going to return false. Since the current node 1 is equals to null, then of course we are returning false. And also the same thing goes if this value of the linked list 2 is swapped between the linked list 1. So linked list 1 we have the 1 2 3 and 4 and then null, and the linked list 2 we have 1 2 3 and then null. Then of course the linked list current node 2 we have the null, then of course we are returning false. And then we can add another check since it is already gatekeep the check. We can add another gatekeep by using the if check. If the current node 1 dot data, which is the data property, is not the same as the current node 2 dot data, if they are not the same, using the data property to check if the data is not equals from the current traverse or the current iteration, then of course we use the return false. And we can add after both gates, we can iterate over the current node. If they are identical, then of course we move the pointer of the current node 1 into the next node, and also the current node 2 to the next node for the next iteration to fulfill the while loop. Then we can use the current node 1 equals the current node 1 dot next, assigning the current node 1 dot next to the current node 1. And also the same thing goes to the current node 2 equals the current node 2 dot next, and the while loop will repeat all over again to the next pointer of the both linked list. Then after the while loop stops, if it is not returning anything else from the gate right here, then of course we only return true. That is the final one of our code. So let's run this code to see if it works, and let's submit this one. Okay, so that's about it. I hope you understand my explanation. If you still don't understand, you can ask me in the comment section, or if you have any better solutions regarding this challenge, tell us what you think in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.